It's been something that's on in a lot of our hearts for many years. Obviously, it's as far as a bit of fiction goes, The Romance of the Three Kingdoms is, it has fans worldwide. It's a really important piece of classical literature. Many of us are fans of games inspired by the era as well, and really remains one of the last great war periods that we have yet to even touch. Like, it's completely new ground for us. So we thought it was an important sort of land to discover at this point.
We have our romance mode, which focuses on making our characters a bit larger than life, and as they were in the novel, or the epic rather, where they perform like superhuman feats, like larger than life feats. And then in records mode, in records mode they're much more focused in on very powerful figures, but not superhuman, larger than life, kind of fantastical, romantic.
You can see the heroes in romance mode are they're powerful characters. They are unit destroyers. They are game changers, right? So the way you deploy these in a battle it's a lot more severe than in records mode, where they act like they're a powerful unit. They are a general with their bodyguard. But really, you can send one of the generals in romance mode, and you can be sure they're going to hold their own against a unit of even like the most highest caliber. So it changes how you use them on the battlefield, how you support them, how you use them against each other. Like in romance mode, you see the duels we have. Duels are a great way of like tying down other heroes with your own heroes. So if like in the case of Lu Bu, when he had that fight in the Xiapi demo, if he hadn't been engaged in a duel, then he risked sort of just destroying the entire front line. He's a really powerful character, can decimate units. So you want to get your other heroes to sort of harass the enemy's powerful heroes, and there's like a different interplay there. Deploy their special abilities, which they don't have in record mode. It's very much inspired by their great feats in the novel, the epic. So yeah, they behave differently. They're used in different ways. Yeah, there are hundreds of named characters in the book, and so even the most random person you might have an affinity for might pop up. Be like, oh my gosh, I knew that guy. Yeah. He dies on this page. Now he's my general.
One of the things that the game is, because we're so focused on sort of the driving the character narrative and the emotions there, is that we thought we put together some situations where you could see that borne out. So in the battle, for instance, you see them interacting with each other on the same side, sort of like jostling and ribbing each other, and then also arguing with their enemies, like saying meaner things, like they're going to kill them, and the manner in which they do those. And that kind of thing is borne out by not only just the battle itself, but by their interpersonal relationships that you form throughout an entire campaign. So if you have a friend who was in your faction and they left your faction and now they're your enemy, you might find that the lines that they say to each other in a battle are a bit more tinged with bittersweet, like, my friend, I wish you didn't have to come to this, kind of thing. Whereas if you're definitely rivals and you've always hated each other, it's going to be, I'm going to rip out your heart. Like, so it's going to shift how you interact with one another. It's a real line. Interact with one another. So yeah, kind of just bearing out the sort of the friends and the rival system we have in the game as through sort of dialogue and dynamic systems.
Yeah, so we wanted to sort of change up a bit how we worked with spies in this one. So instead of the agents like we had in previous games, you had like an individual agent piece who could move around the map and sort of act on their own accord. We really want to reinforce the idea that to be an agent in the world really is just it's just another facet of a normal character's sort of personality. So now your generals can be spies, and the way that works is that certain characters have a sort of a predisposition to espionage, and if a character has that, you can then send them to an enemy or a rival faction. At this point, they enter into sort of their recruitment pool, and if they're a suitable candidate, if they're promising, if they're maybe a high level, have some good skills, good traits, then the faction will recruit them in. And at that point, to the other faction, they behave like a normal character. They have no idea this person's a spy. But you, as the person who sent the spy out, gets information on that faction's sort of economy. You get to have a line of sight as to where that character is. And as the character spends more and more time in the faction, they build up their cover, they make a spy network, and you progressively unlock more and more means of messing with the other faction. And this can go on. I mean, it's a long game thing as opposed to the instant gratification of previous agent actions. It's about sowing the seeds of suspicion and doubt and really playing mind games with the other faction, and it can happen back to you as well, which is extremely distressing.
Yeah, unofficially, we obviously can't say what we might be doing because we don't know also, but I'm like in favor of going to sort of unknown places and interesting places that might not, like, so not Europe, not America. Like I was always interested in the idea of seeing what the history of India might be like. Like I don't know it myself, but I feel like there's a lot to be seen in the Indian subcontinent. See anything there? Probably quite explosive history as well. What about yourself, Dom?
Well, I'm a big fan of Fall of the Samurai, and to me that shares similarities with how I imagine an American Civil War game might play out. So largely two alliances fighting against each other on a sort of a map with trains and obviously weapons.
Trains are good, actually.
Trains and guns. So an American Civil War game would be an interesting one to explore, I think.